The phone buzzed in my hand just as I stepped off the boardwalk, the smell of salt water still clinging to my hair. "Hey, Ava." It was Mrs. Palmer, the elderly neighbor who always peeked through her curtains like she was watching a soap opera. Live. Her voice trembled. "Sweetheart, I don't mean to alarm you, but there've been cars coming and going from your driveway all day. Not just one or two, at least 8. I saw your cousin Stephanie lugging bags in. I thought you were supposed to be out of town?" Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The world tilted. My fingers tightened on the railing until the wood bit into my palm. "What do you mean cars? Who's in my house?" "That's the thing," she whispered. "They look settled, like they belong there." My throat burned. I ended the call without another word and opened the home surveillance app. The screen flickered, then came into sharp focus. My living room. I froze. There they were, my relatives. Aunt Linda, legs propped on the ottoman like it was hers. My brother Tyler, sprawled on the couch, a beer in hand. Stephanie, already unpacking. Groceries in my kitchen. Laughter echoed through the speakers, sharp and careless, as if they owned the place. I felt my stomach churn. They knew this wasn't their house. They knew I'd bought it in my name, in silence, without a whisper to anyone, and still, here they were, invading. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at them through the camera lens like a stranger watching strangers. My jaw locked until I heard my own teeth grind. Behind me, the ocean roared, but all I heard was Aunt Linda's voice through the speakers. "Finally, a house that suits us." She was bound to hand it over eventually. She's too soft to fight back. My chest burned with heat, humiliation, rage. Yet beneath it all, something colder stirred. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. I booked the earliest flight home, hours. Later, I stood on the porch of my house, keys still in my bag, heartbeat thundering in my ears. Through the frosted glass, I saw shadows moving, heard clinking glasses, laughter, music turned up loud. I turned the knob. Unlocked. They hadn't even bothered to change the lock. The door creaked open. Silence. Every head turned. "Ava." Tyler jumped up, plastering on a fake smile. "You're back early. We were just, keeping the place warm for you." "By breaking in?" My voice cut through the room, cold and sharp. Nobody spoke. Eyes darted. Feet shuffled. Then a sound. Footsteps behind me. The kind of steady, deliberate stride that made the room shrink. My husband, Ethan, stepped in. Broad-shouldered, tailored jacket still sharp from the plane. He didn't shout. He didn't flinch. He just walked straight, into the middle of the living room, every relative watching like children caught red-handed. He turned once, slow, deliberate. His gaze landed on each of them, then stopped. His words were calm, but every syllable carried weight. "Who told you this was yours?" The room crackled with tension. Aunt Linda opened her mouth, then shut it. Stephanie fidgeted with a glass. Tyler looked at the floor, but I stood frozen, not because of them, but because Ethan's question wasn't only for them. His eyes flicked to me too, sharp, searching, like he wanted to know why I hadn't told him about the house sooner. Why I had kept this secret. The silence stretched. My pulse pounded. Nobody dared to answer. Finally, Ethan's voice dropped lower, each word cutting deeper. "Pack your things. All of you. Now." Nobody moved. The silence in the living room was so thick it felt like a rope tightening around my throat. Ethan's voice had been calm, but the effect was nuclear. My relatives froze as if his words had carved them into statues. Finally, Aunt Linda recovered enough to laugh, though it cracked halfway out of her throat. Ethan, darling, you don't understand. This house, it's family property. Ava wouldn't mind. She knows blood comes first. My chest ignited. Family property? My words cut like glass. I signed every paper myself. Not one of you contributed a single dime. Don't stand here and pretend this belongs to you. Tyler raised his beer can with a smirk, eyes glazed. Oh, come on, Ava. You were always the stingy one. You hide things. You keep secrets. What's the point of a house this size if you don't share it with your own family? His words hit harder than I expected. Not because they were true, but because they echoed years of whispers I'd grown up with. Selfish, ungrateful, difficult. The kind of words that stick even when you try to bury them. Ethan stepped closer to Tyler, voice low and steady. You don't live here, you don't belong here, and you don't get to insult my wife in her own home. Stephanie dropped the grocery bag she'd been unpacking, voice sharp. Your wife? She sneered, eyes cutting at me. You mean the woman who thinks she's better than the rest of us? She's always been like this, Ethan, hoarding, hiding, pretending she's above her bloodline. We're family. We deserve a piece of this. And if you think you can just walk in here and enough. Ethan's tone didn't rise. It didn't have to. His eyes alone silenced her. But my hands were trembling, my nails digging into my palms. For years, I'd let their words bruise me. I'd swallowed my anger, told myself keeping peace was easier. But seeing them spread across my furniture, drinking from my glasses, smirking like squatters, it flipped a switch inside me. You deserve nothing, I said, my voice shaking but strong. Not one chair, not one plate? You broke into my home, trashed my trust, and still have the nerve to claim rights? That ends tonight. Aunt Linda rose, face red, veins standing out in her neck. Don't talk to me like that, Ava. I raised you when your mother couldn't. You owe me. This house is the least you could give back. I flinched. The words were a blade pressed to an old wound. She always knew how to cut deep. But Ethan stepped in front of me, his back solid, his presence unshakable. She owes you nothing, he said, his voice steel. You've leeched off her for years. That ends now. Pack up. Tyler slammed the beer down, liquid splashing across my table. Or what, Ethan? You gonna call the cops? Tell them your in-laws came for a visit? They'll laugh in your face. Ethan didn't blink. Try me. The tension in the room snapped. Everyone started talking at once. Accusations, defenses, excuses. My heart pounded as I stared at the chaos I'd once called family. And then, like lightning, clarity struck. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to beg. This house wasn't just wood and brick. It was my line in the sand. And they had crossed it. I grabbed my phone, fingers steady now, and began to type. Tyler noticed. First, what are you doing? Documenting, I said flatly. Every word, every face, every trespass. You think no one will take me seriously? Try explaining this when the footage rolls. For the first time, fear flickered across Stephanie's face. Aunt Linda's confidence faltered. Tyler cursed under his breath. Ethan's hand brushed mine, grounding me, steadying me. You don't have to fight them alone anymore, he murmured. I lifted my chin. I know, but this time I want them to see me fight. The room spun with their stammers and excuses, but I no longer heard them the same way. For the first time, I wasn't the girl shrinking under their shadows. I was the woman who bought a house they could never claim, and they were about to learn what that meant. The living room felt like a war zone. Faces I had once trusted now looked like intruders squatting in my life. Every second, their excuses clawed at me. But I stayed silent, letting the camera on my phone record every word, every flicker of arrogance, on their faces. Tyler pointed at me, his voice dripping with mockery. You really think anyone's going to side with you, Ava? We're family. Judges don't throw out family for visiting. You've always been dramatic. Nobody takes you seriously. I pressed the record button harder, my voice flat and sharp. Keep talking, Tyler, please. You're building my case for me. Stephanie scoffed, tossing her hair. You think your little recordings mean anything? You're pathetic, Ava. Pathetic for buying this house in secret. Pathetic for hiding from your own family. And pathetic for thinking this changes who you are. You'll always be the weak one. Her words sliced, but this time they didn't sink in. I felt Ethan's hand brush mine again, the weight of his presence anchoring me. He leaned forward, speaking directly to them, each word measured like a blade. You've mistaken her silence for weakness. But let me tell you, Ava has been stronger than all of you combined. You've leeched, manipulated, and humiliated her for years, and she never broke. Do you know what that makes her? Untouchable. The room snapped quiet. Stephanie's lips parted, but nothing came out. Aunt Linda shifted uneasily, the bravado slipping from her face. But Tyler, fueled by cheap beer and arrogance, stepped closer. Untouchable? Don't make me laugh. She wouldn't even have this house if it wasn't for us. Our connections, our name. She should be grateful. I stood, my legs trembling but firm. Grateful? My voice cracked, then grew sharper, louder, echoing off the walls. Grateful for what? For being told I'd never amount to anything? For being mocked at every milestone I achieved? For watching you all take and take while I worked myself raw just to prove I wasn't worthless? You think this house is yours? Because you think I am still the girl you could control. I stepped forward, phone raised. But I'm not that girl anymore. For the first time, Tyler faltered. His smirk cracked. Aunt Linda's eyes darted toward the door. Stephanie crossed her arms, but her bravado wavered. Ethan seized the moment, his voice low but lethal. You have 5 minutes. Get your bags, walk out, or the police walk in. The air turned electric. Police? Aunt Linda hissed, her face twisting. You'd really drag your own blood through the mud? Blood means nothing, I snapped, when all you've ever done is bleed me dry. The words shocked even me, but once spoken I felt something uncoil in my chest. Power, clarity, the years of silence cracking wide open. Stephanie's voice broke the moment, shrill and desperate. You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare. Ethan pulled out his phone, scrolling deliberately, then holding it up so the screen glowed in the dim light. Try me. The sound of his thumb hovering over the dial tone was enough. Aunt Linda's shoulders slumped. Tyler swore under his breath, pacing like a caged animal. Stephanie muttered something inaudible, eyes darting around the room like a cornered thief. But no one moved. I stepped closer, my voice icy calm. 4 minutes. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then, like cowards retreating, Aunt Linda grabbed her purse. Stephanie followed, muttering curses under her breath. Tyler lingered, glaring at me with eyes full of venom. This isn't over, he spat. I stared back, unflinching. It already is. They shuffled out, their shadows stretching across my walls, their voices fading into the night. The slam of the door was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The house was still. For the first time, it felt like mine. Truly mine. I exhaled, my hands finally trembling now that the storm had passed. Ethan turned to me, his eyes softer, concern, breaking through his stoic mask. You okay? I swallowed hard. Better than okay. I'm done letting them write my story. But as I looked around at the mess they'd left behind, empty bottles, shoes scattered, crumbs on my rug, a darker thought crept in. This wasn't the end. People like them didn't vanish quietly. They'd be back. And next time, I'd be ready. The silence after they left was deafening. I stood in the wreckage of my own living room, the faint scent of their perfume and beer still hanging in the air. For a moment, the weight of years pressed down on me. Years of biting my tongue, Years of being their scapegoat, their target. But now, something in me had snapped loose. Ethan bent down, picking up the shattered remains of a glass Stephanie had dropped. His voice was quiet, but steady. You know they'll come back. People that don't let go easily. I met his eyes, and for the first time, I didn't feel the old fear. I felt fire. Then I'll make sure they regret ever stepping foot in here. That night, I didn't sleep. I scrolled through the footage, every laugh, every insult, every word of entitlement they'd spoken under my roof. I clipped it, saved it, cataloged it. But I didn't stop there. I pulled bank records, loan papers, the messages Tyler had sent me over the years asking for money and never paying it back. Receipts, screenshots, proof of the years I'd been drained dry. By morning, I had a file thick enough to bury them in. Their own shame. Ethan watched me, his expression unreadable. Are you sure you want to go this far? I looked at him steady. For once, it's not about revenge. It's about truth. They've painted me as weak my whole life. I'm done letting them control the narrative. He nodded once. Then, let's finish this. The opportunity came faster than I expected. Aunt Linda had arranged a family gathering at her house the following weekend. A gathering I was never invited to, of course. But this time, I went. Not as the timid niece they remembered, but as someone who had already won. When I walked into the room, heads turned. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Tyler's smirk returned instantly. Look who finally decided to crawl out of her hole. I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled the small USB drive from my purse and set it on the table. Before you say another word, I suggest you watch this. The TV screen flickered to life. Their faces filled the room. Linda sprawled on my ottoman, Tyler with a beer in hand, Stephanie sneering in my kitchen. Their voices poured out, crystal clear. She'll hand it over eventually. She's too soft to fight back. We deserve a piece of this. She's pathetic. The room turned ice cold. No one moved. No one breathed. Aunt Linda's face drained of color. Tyler's bravado collapsed. Stephanie's hand trembled against her wine glass. You wanted to claim my house as yours? I said, my voice cutting. The silence. Congratulations. Now the entire family gets to see what you really are. Gasps filled the room. Whispers darted from corner to corner. The same relatives who had once nodded along with Linda now looked away, disgusted. Tyler shot to his feet, red-faced. You had no right. I had every right, I snapped. You broke into my home. You sat on my furniture. You mocked. Me in my own kitchen. And you thought I'd stay quiet like always. But those days are gone. I won't be your victim anymore. For once, they had no response. The power they'd fed on all my life was gone, ripped out from under them. I gathered my things, calm now, my voice steady as steel. Stay out of my life. Stay out of my house. Because the next time you cross that line, it won't just be family watching the footage. It'll be the law. The silence that followed was deafening. I turned to leave, but not before glancing back. Stephanie's eyes were wet, Linda's lips quivered, and Tyler's fists clenched with impotent rage. But none of it mattered anymore, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't walking out defeated. I was walking out free. Back at home that night, Ethan poured me a glass of water and slid it across the counter. His eyes softened as he looked at me. You finally stood up to them. I let out a breath I'd been holding for years. No, I finally stood up for myself. The house was quiet again, but this time, it wasn't loneliness. It was peace. My peace. I glanced around at the walls, the furniture, the home I'd built on my own. For years I'd been told it would never be enough, that I would never be enough. But tonight, I knew better. Because this house wasn't just a house anymore. It was proof. Proof that I could survive, fight back, and win. And no one, not family, not blood, not even ghosts from the past, would ever take that from me again.